Welcome back to John McKinney Racing YouTube channel. I'm going to show you today the differences between upper ball joint combinations, whether it's spacers or long ball joint, stock ball joint, and just show you the effects of what it does to camber. And keep in mind that this is just a mock setup, just mocking everything up, and this is educational for me. And I thought, you know what, while I'm doing this, I'll share what's going on. You're also going to see what I've done different with the lower ball joint and what the effect is with that, which I don't want to spoiler alert, but it's very disappointing with all the work I put into it. But at least it's something I could show you guys, and you'll be able to get some information and knowledge out of that and know what to expect if you decide to do something like this. So let's get into it.
Hello again, how are you doing today? I just wanted to highlight what I'm doing today. I want to show you, this video is going to be highlighting what the different upper ball joints do to your alignment, because I don't think a lot of people really go over this. Right now I have no shims. I have 0 shims up here for the upper control arm. And I just want to show you right now what it looks like with no shims in it and a 1-inch extended ball joint up top. Here I have a AccuLevel digital level from Longacre Racing. Really nice unit. You get it on the spindle. It comes with a magnetic attachment that'll go to a hub, but for me, my hub's aluminum, my wheel's aluminum, so I got this GM adapter that you just take off the magnet and put this on and thread it onto the spindle, and that way you can see what you've got. So there's a bubble level on top. Kind of have to play with a little bit here. And once you got it level, so by no means is any of this set up as it's going to be. It's not in its final setup. But what I'm trying to do here is just highlight what the settings are right out of the gate, just as you're installing everything, no shims. In this case, like I said, I've got the 1-inch extended ball joint up top. This is a stock type ball joint for the lower, which is a Camaro ball joint. And later I'll show you why I'm going to do what I'm about to do. But here I have an all-star spherical lower ball joint, which is adjustable. You can move, once you get this in the body, right, in the lower control arm, you can take the shaft and adjust it so that your lower control arm is either further down, further up, whatever. Yes, that messes with your ride height some more, and I've already got a 2-inch drop spindle here. So yes, making adjustments to this is going to affect the ride height. But later on in the video, as I go through and show you the different ball joint configurations, I'll explain to you why I'm going to end up using that lower ball joint, and you'll see it physically, because I'm going to take the boot off of the ball joint down here and show you what happens when I get it full travel. So right now I've got this leveled out, turning it on, zero it out. So right now, the way this is set up at ride height, I have 2.5 degrees of positive caster, meaning that the wheel is leaning outward at the top, okay? And you can check your caster. So the way you're supposed to set up a front end, and like I said, this is not set up. I don't even have all the steering components in yet. But the reason I'm doing this is because I want to show you the effects of using a ball joint spacer, whether it's angled 1 inch, 2 inch, a 1 inch extended ball joint, a stock ball joint. And then later on, I'll take this through its full travel and show you what happens when you start mixing and matching different things. And like I said, I'm not gonna try to make any adjustments to it right now. I just want to show you what happens when you are making changes, and then you have to determine, do I really want 1 to 2 inches of shims stacked up in there to try to correct it? I know on the second gen Camaro can get kind of carried away with shims anyway, but as you can see, right now I've got 2.5 degrees of positive caster, and if I want to, or camber, sorry, but if I want to check the caster, you just take your right spindle, roll it about 15 degrees, and then you bring it back to your starting point, and you can see I've got 5.2 degrees of caster. You just roll it back so you can see a change. Is basically what you're doing. And you roll it back to 0 at your starting point. And I've got 5.4 degrees of caster, which means the spindle is laid rearward towards the car. That's positive caster. In a drag racing application, when you're going straight, the more caster you have, the better straight line stability you have. And the reason for that is as you lay the spindle rearward, it forces the wheels to correct themselves straight and stay straight. If you want a good example of how extreme it can be, take a look at the old front engine dragsters where when they would steer the wheels left or right too far, the wheels would literally fall over, and then somebody would have to come and actually physically grab the wheels and flop them back up again. Those are pretty extreme angles. They're like, I don't know, upwards of 12 to 15 degrees or more. In this case, 5.4 is really good, but this system is designed to give me 7 or more. But if I want to, when I get to the point where I'm going to do the adjustments for that, I'm going to either end up adjusting the upper spherical rod ends to shift it and then get my camber zeroed out. But right now, I'm not worried about making those adjustments. I have no interest in doing that right now. All I'm interested in is knowing where I'm starting at, and what combination of ball joints, upper and lower, whether it's spacers, or if it's a stock type upper ball joint or not. I will say, even though I'm going to show you the differences, that I've already done the measurements. I've already traveled the suspension up and down, and my conclusion is that, one, I don't want the angled spacer up here. I don't want the 2 inch. I do want the 1 inch extended ball joint that I have. The stock ball joint does not allow me to get the travel that I want, nor does the lower ball joint in this setup. The way I'm going to get the amount of front end travel I want is with this lower ball joint and with this 1 inch upper extended ball joint up top. And I'm going to show you later on what it looks like with a stock ball joint up here, because the problem is, not a problem, but you just have to understand that the further you push the control arm up, the more angle you're going to induce into the camber, right? You're gonna tilt the wheel outward up top, which means you're either gonna have to make adjustments with these rod ends up here and shims, but I have seen where people are putting in the longer ball joints, or they're putting in the angled spacer and whatnot, and then they're saying, well, is it normal to have all these shims up here in the top? Well, yes, it is, because you can see that, you know, I'm at 2.7 degrees positive caster, and that's just with this 1-inch extended ball joint. So I'll take this apart and I will put a stock ball joint in here, and I'll show you what the difference is. Okay, so here I have the stock ball joint installed up top, and you can see that it pulled it in almost 3/4 of a degree, right? Now it's at 2 degrees positive camber, which means that we're tilting the wheel back in a little bit, right? And again, no shims, no adjustments. I'm just showing you what happens when you start adding spacers or extended upper ball joints and whatnot. At this point, I can try. I'm not doing like full-blown final assembly, just trying to give you an idea of what this looks like if you decide that you want to do this. I can tell you from what I've seen so far that the best setup is the 1-inch extended ball joint up top. That I do know. And these don't exactly fit. And I'm not trying to press this into the upper control arm, because it's going to be a bit of a chore to try to take it apart later. But just by adding that angled spacer in there for more articulation, I mean, like I said, this is not final assembly, but getting that cinched up, just by doing that alone, just by putting that angled spacer in there, it jumped it up to 3.6 degrees. And you can probably see how angled the spindle is at that point, which, to correct that, see if I can give you just a little bit of a visual here. To correct that, if you want to bring that to 0, it's that's well over an inch of spacer or shims right there. That's pretty huge. The hole is here, right? So that's how far it's off just by doing that. So for what I'm trying to do, the angled spacer doesn't work for me, but it's a good visual for you guys to understand that when you're making these changes, this is what to expect. But this is all in an effort to get more front end travel, to have everything move freely, whatnot, right? We already know, I could probably do the 1-inch spacer with a stock ball joint just so you see what it looks like. and that's 3.9. So I could turn this off. So just putting the 1-inch spacer in there with a stock ball joint puts you at 3.9 degrees of positive camber. And so that would take a lot to correct that in shims, which again, that's what shims are for, right? But my goal is to come up with a combination where I'm not putting together, you know, stacking nuts and bolts back there to try to fix it right. Let's do a 2-inch because I'm curious to see what it looks like. So we're at 6.5 degrees of positive camber. That's ridiculous. It would take a lot to fix that, okay? But this is just out of my curiosity and to educate you as well as myself, right? So it's not totally wasted effort, but that's what it looks like. So now let's get back to what a 1-inch extended ball joint looks like. And we're at 2.7, 2.8, right? Again, this isn't all cinched up tight, but so the best compromise in this situation is to use a 1-inch extended ball joint, okay? Even a 1/2 inch would work. They do make them in stock 1/2 inch and 1 inch. I have the 1 inch. This is gonna work the best for me overall. I'm gonna throw some hardware on here, and then I'm going to show you how much front end travel I have with this current setup. So, yep, that's what everything looks like. And I'm glad I did all this. This tool from Longacre was, I think it was about 300 bucks by the time I got the attachment for the spindle. But for me, it's worth every penny to not only show you what's going on with this stuff, but it's very educational and informative for myself. It very enlightening. I mean, when I was putting the front end together, I could come out here and I could physically see that this spindle is laying over, and I knew right in an instant when I put all this together, I said, okay, you can physically see the difference. But then as I started stacking and moving the ball joint around with spacers and whatnot, you could definitely see just how ridiculous it would be to try to correct that. And there's not a lot of adjustment on the upper control arms already. Ultimately, what I want to see is right now it's what, 6 point. Like I said, this is not going to be exact right now because not everything's tightened up. But just to get an idea of what it looks like. you know, 5.4 degrees of caster. Ideally, I want to be around 7 degrees of caster. But if it starts getting to the point where I'm putting a whole bunch of shims in here, I'm not going to do all that. These cross shafts are aluminum, and I'd rather have them as flush to the frame as possible, just for integrity. But anyway, that's what it looks like when you're moving the ball joints around and doing different combinations. So some pretty extreme differences there, if you ask me, especially with what it takes to correct it. So stay tuned. I'll bring you back and show you what this does, and because I got to pull the boot off of this ball joint, and then I want to show you how much travel I have with this combination, which is the combination I'm going to use for this. I'm going to show you what it does with this ball joint installed down here, and then you'll understand why I'm going to change over to the other ball joint. Okay, so right here I've got the boot off the bottom of the ball joint. We got the measuring tape set up here. Just going to bump this up a little bit. So that's ride height. So right there I've got 4 5/8 inches of travel. And it's going to be a little hard to show you this, but let's see if I can do it. But the ball joint is actually bottomed out. It's slammed up against the side of the housing. It cannot travel any further. So I don't even know if that was a good shot, and I'm sorry if it wasn't. but that's what happened there. The upper ball joint still has enough travel that the upper ball joint could still swing out about that much further. So it's not the upper ball joint that's causing the travel limitation. It's not the limiter up here. The control arm is not hitting the side of the frame. The shock has got well more than enough travel. This shock has another 2 inches left in it, or more, I think. So with that being said, I mean, that's good. But you know what? We can make it better. And the only issue I'm going to run into is that these particular control arms, when you try to remove the ball joints, these control arms are not maintenance friendly in that respect. So it's a little brutal to get those out of there. You have to brace your lower control arm against some wood, make sure it's not going to go anywhere, and then use an air chisel to just knock that ball joint out of the bottom. Use a puller to pull in the new one, which the beauty of this spherical rod joint here, this is completely rebuildable. So once I get this housing in the control arm, I will never have to remove it unless, I mean, I guess I'd have to slam this thing into a wall and bust it into pieces, which I'm going to be doing a lot more work than that, right? But you can buy a new shaft, you can buy spacers, you can take out the clip and replace the spherical joint itself. So once you get this housing in, you don't ever have to mess with this again. You can rebuild this ball joint completely with all new parts. And the goal is to get just a little more travel out of the front end, just get everything that I can out of it, and then just see, and then go through and start doing the alignment and putting everything together and whatnot. But I just wanted to show you why I'm doing what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So the goal here is to get that spherical ball joint in the bottom of this control arm and just adjust it until I'm happy with the amount of travel I get out of it, without happen to go to extremes with all the front end alignment issues that you run into. But so far this seems to be the setup up here, and now we're going to just get the setup right down there so that we can get the travel we want out of it. All right, so I've got the spherical ball joint installed in the bottom. Did not work the way I wanted it to. If I show you, and it's going to be real easy to see, I'm not even at ride height. I can't even get it low enough to get to ride height. The reason for that is the way these are made. The way these are made, you can see that it's got a shoulder, right? That way it doesn't go through the bearing. That shoulder hits the housing. Even if you put spacers in, they're shaped the same. They're squared off. So there's no way for it to actually get the amount of travel that you get out of a standard ball joint. So, in my defense, there's not a lot of information out there about these lower spherical joints. There are some companies out there who make these tubular control arms and they're making the spherical joints. I'm assuming that they're making them so they can have a lot more travel than what this is. I haven't been able to find anything that's going to work for me though on my car. From what I understand, I'm just seeing the stuff for the Fox bodies. So this will come out and I'll put a standard ball joint back in it. Just wanted to highlight also, yes, I know that none of this was tightened up and cinched up while I was showing you the different angles with the spacers and whatnot. It was just purely to show you what happens when you change the geometry up here, what happens to your camber, okay? And again, you can throw a bunch of shims in there and get it correct, but you just have to understand that when you start changing things up here, it changes things out here, okay? And it gets more extreme as you go. My limiting factor at this point, from everything that I've done, my limiting factor is the lower ball joint. And it looks like I get 4 5/8 of travel, which is better than the 2 3/4 I started with, okay? And if that's what I end up with, that's what I end up with. And I'll be happy with that. So, thank you for watching this video. And I will go in and edit this and get it out as soon as I can, so you guys can see the big fail, at least on this part. But you know what? I'm doing this so you don't have to.
All right, thank you for watching the video. I hope you got something out of it. I know I did. It was a lot of work for, there's a lot of work on the ball joint, the lower ball joint for nothing. But at least now I know, you know, and that's something you can take with you when you decide to work on your front suspension and how to decide what you want to do with it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow along as I continue this journey of building this car back up to get on the track and hopefully go a little bit faster. Thank you. Keep watching.